Welcome, everybody, to number 72. Number 72. We have episode 72 of the Game Changers. I'm Carla, your host for this episode, featuring Leo Siga. His extensive expertise will provide invaluable insights into our discussions, where we will explore thought provoking topics to ensure a one of a kind experience for our audience. A special thanks for the TSA team for their support in creating this platform for meaningful conversations with community leaders and innovators. Join me as I delve into the stories and insight of my guests, especially in the realm of fantasy football. The Game Changers foster a unique community, and I am honored to share this journey with all of you tonight. Who is Leo Paciga, known as Leo Siga? He's a fantasy football analyst and content creator. Leo is a respected voice in the fantasy football community, bringing over 38 years of experience to the table. Since immersing himself in fantasy football in 2002, Leo has built a reputation for delivering thoughtful and impactful content that has guided countless enthusiasts through the ups and downs of the game. A former finalist for the Fantasy Sports Writer Association FSWA Award in 2015, Leo's passion for the sport is matched only by his dedication for helping others succeed. For a decade, he contributed as a writer and content creator at Dynasty League Football TLF, where his engaging content became a cornerstone for fans of all levels. Today, Leo is a key member of FootBallGuys team, continuing to share his deep understanding of player dynamics, draft strategies, and the mental chess game that defines fantasy football. His ability to break down complex concepts and translate them into actionable advice has made him an indispensable resource for the fantasy football community. Driven by his love for the game and his commitment to empowering players, Leo Siga remains a true trailblazer in the ever-evolving world of fantasy sports. Leo, how are you tonight?
I'm great. I'm actually going to have you write my resume. That was wonderful. I certainly don't feel like I live up to half of the things that you said, but I appreciate it. It was very kind.
You do. You're a very down-to-earth person, and we're gonna talk a lot about, how we connected and everything that, all your journey through fantasy football, through life itself, and more. So, Leo, let's start with your fantasy football journey. What inspired you to start playing fantasy football 38 years ago, and maybe more right now?
Yeah, I had some friends in high school, and when we graduated, one of the friends had an older brother who worked in a financial institution in Boston, and they were playing. And so it was, hey, we're going to go from 10 people to 12 people. Do you want to get involved? So I said, sure, let's do it. And it was a different animal. Back in the 80s, there were no sites that helped host and provide stats. Everything was basically done with a pencil and a USA Today, and faxes were sent out. And again, a completely different animal. One thing that's really changed significantly, and I'm sure we'll get into this over the course of the show, is that back then, if you did your homework and if you had kind of a sharp eye, you could really differentiate yourself from the rest of the group. From the casual fans. But in today's world of fantasy football, with so many sites and so much information, it's an overload. Those advantages have sort of dissipated. The hard work doesn't really pay the same dividend that it did 38 years ago because, again, the information is readily available today.
That's awesome. I can't. With social media, everything is in front of you, right? We're going to talk a lot about social media as well. So, what was the first fantasy league you ever participated in like?
It was, well, for me, again, I had just graduated high school. It was a bunch of older financial guys that, dealt with mutual funds and, bonds and stocks. And so they had a level of numerical understanding that I didn't really have, but I understood the game of football. So while they understood the nuanced numeric side, I understood the aspects of the game that put me in a position to succeed. It was fun. It wasn't the same level of camaraderie because we didn't have a site to host it. So we
Yes.
got together for the draft. And, that was we got together at the draft and we got together at the end of the year for awards. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of dialogue other than phone calls because, I remember that first year we weren't even sending emails. So,
Crazy.
it was rotary dial phones trying to reach, I remember calling the office of like the VP of operations in Boston, seeing if he wanted to trade, I can't remember who the player was at the moment, but it was crazy. Again, just a whole different ball game compared to the easy access that we have today.
Wow. Can you share your most memorable fantasy football victory?
Most memorable victory. There's so many.
Yeah.
The defeats, losing sticks more than winning. I remember those much more clearly than I remember, taking home championships. Um, I remember one particular championship where I got too creative and I sat Ben Roethlisberger because there were going to be 40-mile-an-hour winds, and I thought, oh, it'll be fine. And I forget who I played. It might have even been Dan Orlowski with the Lions. He was indoors, and it was against the Saints, and they gave up a ton of yardage. Anyway, I made some last second change because I overthought the situation, and I ended up losing by like 3 points in a title game that I really wanted. And if I had left Roethlisberger in, I would have won. And I still remember making that switch. Even though it was a long time ago. As far as winning, there's been a few home leagues that have meant a lot because of the in-person bragging. And I've won a couple other high-profile leagues that meant a lot. But like I said, the losses stick a lot more than the wins do.
I agree. So, for you, Leo, what trends do you foresee shaping the future of fantasy football?
I mean, fantasy football is um, really at a crossroads as far as mainstream gambling has gotten more and more involved. So, I still think there's a niche and room for the fun leagues that you have with your buddies or the online leagues that you have. But let's face it, parlays and gambling in the moment on a Sunday afternoon has really changed kind of what the fantasy landscape looks like, because more and more sites, more and more major players from ESPN, FanDuel, DraftKings, they're all gearing their games towards, over and unders on certain players' performances as opposed to setting a lineup and having a score. Um, so I think, we face that as a fantasy industry. Like, what does that look like? And then AI is going to be a major player in what the future of fantasy football looks like, because, the AI is great for generating basic articles that don't have a ton of depth. And I think you're going to see a lot of the folks that know how to manipulate AI and take advantage of it are going to, implement that into their sites and their content. And so I think that's also going to be a major player going forward.
Agreed. So, I know that with analyzing players, you have your own approach, but how your approach changes from year to year, and how the analysis you analyze player performances year after year, Leo.
Yeah. So I think everything that happens previously carries weight. It's an
Yes.
indicator. You learn from it. And And I think for me, and I've shared this, on many of the shows that I've done in the past, I like to take notes during a season. I like to write down and document relatively important decisions, lineup decisions, draft decisions, trade decisions. Why did I go in that particular direction? Because I like to look back on it and see if my process is flawed. Was it that my process was good, but I just happened to pick one of the outcomes that was generated by my process? My process might have given me an option to pick 3 different players, and I happened to pick the wrong one, but the other 2 would have been successful. So I like to go back and look at that and try to implement those learnings into what's going to happen, in the upcoming seasons. Was there
Yeah.
changes? Were there offensive line changes? Were there free agent moves that impacted my performance as a fantasy football player? And how can I utilize that information heading into 2025? And so I also think that not only are you doing that and looking at the past trends, but then you're looking at what is the consensus, what is the community doing, and how can I take advantage of any vulnerabilities that the community's trending in. So it's twofold. I look at my own trends, I look at my own strategies. Did they work? Did they fail? Was the process good? How can I learn from those choices? And then what is the community doing? Is there any vulnerability that I can take advantage of as the community trends in a certain direction?
Yeah. So do you rely on your gut instinct, or do you rely on your data analysis when you approach to balancing?
Well, I'd love to be able to tell you that I rely solely on data, but I mean, we're humans. That's just not the case. And there's plenty of time where I fiddle with my lineup last second and regret it instantly at 105. So, I mean, you can't fight it. You can say, let's put it this way. I try to be 85% data driven, and the other 15%, I let my gut kind of impact. And usually, I don't know, it's probably a coin flip when you let your gut impact the decisions you're making, but you try to make sound, solid decisions. And sometimes your gut plays into that, even when your gut really becomes a factor is when it's a flip of the coin, right? When you've got 2 great matchups at wide receiver and you can only pick one for your flex, which one are you going with? I think the data makes the decisions easy when you project one player to, score 20 points and one player to projects to score 10 points. That's an easy choice. But when they're both projected to produce 20 points, then it's okay. Do I feel like, am I playing for a higher floor? Am I playing for a higher ceiling? How does that work? How does that play in? So that can be challenging when your gut gets involved then.
True. So let's talk a little bit about how we manage to get to know each other a little bit, and then we will go back to football and stuff like that. So on a personal between me and you, I do believe JJ talked to you and Doug Orth about meeting up, and because you live in Boston and Doug Orth lives in Connecticut, and then you met up and I came along, and the rest was history. I was super happy to meet you again at the expo, and a friendship really started there. So how do you build your friendships, Leo, through the community, and what stick more to you than anything else?
So it's quality of character, really. It was what it comes down to. And friendships in the community can be difficult. The community is one of the most endearing, supportive, passionate, kind communities. And then there can be a side to the community that can be challenging, right? Whether it's social media, everybody's trying to build a brand, everybody's trying to build a site. Some folks are in it for different reasons. Some folks do it because they love it. Some folks create content because they're looking to make it a full-time endeavor. Different motives. I mean, it's just like life, right? It's just a smaller microcosm of life. So I try to be open and supportive for the entire community as much as I can. My experience, my 38 years, what can I provide? What kind of legacy knowledge or tribal knowledge do I have that could benefit others that haven't been in the game as long as I have? That said, my friends list is pretty tight. And the reason being is that, I hold my friends close, and it's usually those friends are developed over time based on the quality and characteristics of the individual. And it doesn't mean that, I certainly have acquaintances, and I'm not, saying anything negative about them. I just haven't had the opportunity to really see the true colors and to know that those are folks I want to, be with in my small circle of friends. And so I value that small circle that I have and appreciate them. And again, I try to be as positive and supporting as I can to the rest, but there can be challenging moments in that. And again, ultimately, quality of the individual is what shines through. And everyone you've mentioned, from JJ to Doug to you, and it definitely in that small, tight circle. And I appreciate, each and every one of you.
So for you, it's respect, and mutual respect.
Yeah. And just what's the atmosphere that comes off of you, right? Because anyone can say nice things. Anyone can do nice things. But how are you really when the lights go off and it's just me and you? How are you then? Like, what is the atmosphere that you give off to the people that you love as a wife or a girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or father or mother? What is the atmosphere that you give off in that tight circle? And that's what shines through, what matters. And those are the folks that I will have their back and hope they have mine.
Of course. So I knew that in 2024, you had a little bit of like hiccup, especially losing your fur baby. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was rough. And the expo came at a really, good time. I had actually decided I wasn't going to go to the expo. It was my first time and I wasn't going to go. But we talk about that tight circle of friends. And I had, Tacit Assassin, Zach Reed, and Dynasty Outhouse. They basically brought me. They picked me up and they brought me to the expo because they weren't going to let me miss it. But yeah, we had adopted, my wife and I. We like to, adopt animals, either dogs or cats that have had a rough time, that are coming from situations that aren't normal and have a tough adjustment period. And so we had adopted a cat and had her for about 8 years, and she was special. And she passed away, and it devastated me because it was unexpected. And we thought she had a virus, and she ended up having lymphoma, advanced stage. And we went from a vet visit to putting her to sleep in a matter of hours. And it was gut wrenching, and I had a hard time. And, some folks get it, some folks don't, and that's fine. I mean, but within my four walls, it was rough. And so the expo came at a good time because, again, my friends were there for me. You guys were there for me. And it made a huge difference because it helped kind of get me out of that dark cloud that was just, that vacancy that was missing because we had really lost a family member. And so it was difficult. And then, we talked before the show, but just recently, we had taken a while. My wife and I took a while, and we, mourned losing our pet, and Peanut. We mourned the fact that we didn't have her anymore. We waited a few months, and we just recently adopted two bonded brother kittens that are, we've adopted them at 9 weeks, and now they're about 14 weeks. And everybody was like, 2 is better than 1. And, boy, I'll tell you what, 2 is a lot of work, but they're definitely working their way into our family fabric. That's for sure.
That's awesome, Leo. You're going to have to post some pictures and tag the Game Changers or tag me with that. I would love to see them.
Will.
That's amazing news. I love that. I love that. So, how, talking about all of this, how do you handle negative feedback or bad criticism, not good
Mhm.
criticism, when it comes to
Yeah.
you, your analysis or your daily life that you post on social media?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, no one likes negative criticism, right? I mean,
Agree.
especially when you're dealing with social media, because it doesn't always come from a place of support.
Yeah,
Um, you know, you can get constructive criticism from people that care about you, that want you to succeed. And even that can be difficult to digest, but when you know it's coming from a place of love and support, you can manage that, right? You can navigate that, process it, implement it, apply it to your life or your project or your process, whatever it is. Social media doesn't always afford that. Doesn't always afford, um, it's not criticism to build you up, to make you better. It's criticism to a lot of times to just break you down. And so it
yeah,
can be much, much harder to navigate that. What I always do from a mental health standpoint, I always ask, um, what is the real impact to my life? Um, why does it carry the weight that it should? And then the other thing I talk about a lot in my own headspace is what is the place that they're in their life that they felt the need to do this? And when someone, what I found many, many times, especially when writing an article and getting some negative feedback on the article, is that the person just needs to get their point of view out to tell you what you missed. And when you give that person their time and you listen, I had one particular instance where I had written an article. I had just joined FootBallGuys and I had written an article. Um, and it's a difficult audience because a lot of the stuff that I write is the psychological lens that you apply to fantasy football. Well, I have to kind of make it bread and butter because I'm talking to folks that maybe have never done that before. So I don't want to come out with an article that's designed for an apex content connoisseur, as I refer to them, somebody who wants the highest level of information and detail, because that's going to go over the heads of the folks that are, just digesting this stuff for the first time. So I have to try to frame my article so I fall somewhere in the middle. And I had written one that I thought would address that. And somebody that was an apex content connoisseur, somebody who did this for, dealt with um, uh, algorithms for a living, basically,
yeah,
had said that, this was too fundamentally basic. And so I responded and I wrote that person an email and explained that I try to navigate in the middle, and I appreciate the fact that they even read it. And what I find, and this has happened more than once, is once you have that initial exchange and you don't come back combative, you say,
yes,
I've listened and I appreciate your point of view. We don't see things the same, but thank you for taking the time to write something. Most people dial it down and they realize, okay, I was far more negative than I should have been. And you can grow from that place.
agree.
But you just have to be careful because there are certain folks out there that are trolls, that are just looking to either step on your shoulders as they pass by, or they're just looking to tear down everyone they can. And in those instances, again, you have to ask yourself, why does this carry weight in my life? And where are they at that they feel the need to do this?
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. So, what's your favorite topic to discuss with your audience?
My soapbox, the one that I talk about endlessly, really, is the psychological advantages in fantasy football, because we talked about it earlier in the show. Content is everywhere.
Yes,
Everyone has a website. Folks have podcasts. I mean, there's so much redundancy and duplicity in the fantasy football content, especially now with AI getting involved and the fact that it can pull other people's articles and formulate new articles. I mean, it's just layer upon layer upon layer of the same stuff, and it's everywhere. It's data, it's process, it's strategy, it's player values. It's everywhere. But where there's still an edge that I don't think is capitalized on regularly is the psychological advantage. And for me, the easiest place for people to really get involved with that is knowing the league mates that you play with. And that's my soapbox, my bread and butter. I pound on it constantly, and just pay attention to what your league mates do, because most people tend to repeat the same patterns, have the same tendencies. There's certain folks in your league that maybe always trade away draft picks. There's certain players in your league who always buy veterans during the offseason cheap. There's certain players that certain managers that, are very risk averse, or they sell injured players for pennies on a dollar. Just pay attention to what they do. And those advantages, those doors to knock on, tend to become evident and tend to be a cheat code that for all of the strategies that change year over year, knowing your league mates and how they react to certain things, and even the sites and the information that they follow online, if you're able to figure that out, those are all benefits that just transfer year to year to year, and are always going to give you an edge. And so that's my soapbox, and that's what I preach, and a lot of what I write about.
Can you break down a moment to me when your analysis predicted an unexpected outcome?
I don't know about unexpected, but so my process is I have to adapt, and I have to admit when I've made a mistake. And there's one thread, I think I put it on Blue Sky, I know it's certainly on X, where there was a point in time where I was very youth focused and wide receiver focused in how I built my dynasty teams. And I remember there was a particular situation I'd gotten to, not an argument, but a heated debate with a few folks. And we were discussing T.Y. Hilton versus, who was it? Paris Campbell? No, was it? No, Sidney Moncrief. I mean, not Sid, Dante Moncrief. Sidney Moncrief's a basketball player. Doug would appreciate that. It was Dante Moncrief. And I was all aboard the second-year wide receiver, Moncrief, who was going to eclipse T.Y. Hilton, the aging veteran. And I was all about investing, and he was going to take the next step. And I had all my metrics and my data that backed it up. And that's something you have to be careful of, because it's really easy to work backwards from a result that you want, as opposed to letting the data truly tell you what you should do. And I was in that position. And I remember arguing Moncrief up and down. And if you go back and you look at those numbers, I was 100% wrong. Because over a 5-year span from when that argument took place, or that debate took place, Moncrief performed at a pretty high level. I'm sorry, T.Y. Hilton performed at a very high level, or solid level, a wide receiver 2. And Moncrief did absolutely nothing, and ended up leaving the Colts and going to Jacksonville and did nothing there. So I kind of changed my whole strategy based off of that, and similar situations where I was discounting established productivity more than I should have, even though I had been successful. I had been successful with the strategies that I was implementing, but it wasn't as successful as I could have been. So I adjusted, and that was an outcome that I didn't expect. But the numbers proved it. I remember going back to those folks that I got into the debate with and said, I've learned, and I will side with you guys more often than not now. And there's really value in some of these established veterans, and I shouldn't just be a youth snob like some dynasty players are.
So I know right now that you have the heart, and you don't have the heart in fantasy football and everything that's going on. So where is Leo now with fantasy football, and why his heart is between yes and no, to say the least?
I think it's just run its course, honestly. So again, as I worked through those 38 years, there was always an advantage that I could gain that I enjoyed. Talking about the fringes, talking about the edges. And that enjoyment, I've been doing it a long time, and I still enjoy the community. I still enjoy the friends I've made, the folks I've made, but sitting down and writing an article or doing a podcast or engaging on social media just doesn't carry the same investment reward that it did when I was younger. I'm closing in on 60, and things, my what's important to me has changed a little bit. So you have a finite amount of time, right, in each day, in each week, in each month, and I'm trying to spend it, instead of sitting down and spending 3 hours trying to put together an article that I think 1,000 people might read. I would rather spend time with my wife doing something in the yard, or reading a book, or doing something a little different. So the important thing is that you enjoy what you do, and or you're working towards a goal. If you're in this business because you want to become a full-time content creator, or you're in it because you love it, you know what? Then fantastic. Create the content, invest your time, grind away. If you're at a position where you're just doing it for fun, you want one league, you want to just play with your friends and see them twice, 3 times a year, or you have no interest and it's just time to hang it up and walk away, that's fine too. I mean, social media has kind of, any expectations and what makes social media popular and how you get engagement and all of those nuances are different than what made the community what it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And certainly there's going to be some folks that'll say, you're just an old man who's yelling at clouds. I'm not yelling at anything. I'm just acknowledging it for what it is. And I need to figure out, what it is for me. I'll do Fishbowl again because I love what Scott Fish does. And, I love the charity aspect of it and what Fantasy Cares does. And I've got a Fantasy Cares shirt on now. I support them every chance I can. So I'll do that. And will I write for Football Guys? I'm currently on staff, and, I've talked to, Joe and the other leaders at Football Guys. And, we've talked about, yeah, sure, I may still contribute, but I'm not looking to have my name in print, twice a week, every week, 52 weeks a year. I'm just not. So it's a battle that goes on with me, because there are times when I really miss it and I'm like, boy, I'd love to, so what it really has come down to me is, if I have something I want to say, I want to have an avenue or a vehicle to be able to say it, whether that's social media or an article. Just don't expect a regular stream of me having things to say. That's really where we're at. When I have something, I'll be there, I'll do it, I'll interact, I'll be engaged. But the rest of the time, when I don't have anything to say, I don't need to just fill the air with a bunch of stuff just so I'm on everybody's, radar.
I agree 100% with you. And you don't have to. People should appreciate what they see and what they hear from you when you have the time to post it and engage your stuff with. I agree with you 100%.
I don't want to look back, in 5 years or 6 years and be like, boy, I wish I hadn't written those, wasted time writing those 20 articles. I could have been kayaking with, friends, in lake near our house or so, so to me, it's like, again, it's just we talk about adjusting strategies and adjusting processes. Well, life has processes, and it's all about taking a step back and saying what really matters in this moment and being able to adjust and not feeling like you have to, make excuses. It's kind of like, I've reached an age where I will not help anyone move. I won't help anyone move. Maybe my son. That's about it. But I'm done. My days of helping friends and family move are over. And I don't. No, sorry, dear. I'm doing your podcast. I'm not helping you move. I'll throw you some money to hire movers, but I'm not helping you move. But seriously, I've reached a point in my life where I know that, and I make no uses, and I'm kind of at the same place with fantasy football. I'm at a point in my life where I still want to enjoy it. I know, I guess the key is knowing yourself, right? I'm rambling a little bit, but it's kind of like knowing yourself. Like I don't do an NCAA bracket, right? That's the big thing this weekend is, everybody's filling out their brackets, and I don't, because it takes away the fun for me, because once I fill a team on a line, I'm invested and I want that team to win, and that takes away enjoyment for me. I know that about myself, and I haven't filled out a bracket since about 2013 was the last time I did it. And everybody's like, really? You don't fill out a bracket? No, I don't, because I know it takes away, it robs some of my enjoyment. And that's kind of where I'm at with fantasy football. I'm going to do what I want to do. And, I'm not going to let anybody rob me of my enjoyment.
I admire that. I admire that a lot. Thank you for sharing that, Aliyo. So through the years, especially that you had 38 plus years in fantasy football, what are some hidden gems, like players or tactics maybe, that you've discovered over the years you can share with our audience tonight?
Well, I think we've touched on it already. I think it's knowing what the trends are in the industry. Because every year there's kind of an underlying theme that seems to be the hot new thing. Whether it's zero running back, whether it's whether it's running back heavy, whether it's punting on particular players or particular position in a draft, whether it's trying to implement a new scoring format in the league. There's always something every year that gains a lot of velocity. And so it's identifying that, and it's being able to take advantage of what that opens up. So if you know that, example, right, this past year, you had a lot of veteran running backs that really performed well, from Derrick Henry to Barkley. I mean, the list, there was value because those running backs that were 27, 28, 29, 30 were actually performing at a very high level. So how is that going to impact 2025? Are you going to see the market kind of say, all right, you know what, we think they can do it again? Or are you going to see the market say, we don't expect that to happen again? And so being able to read the room, being able to adjust and take advantage of what you see, whether it's in a particular draft or whether it's in a particular preseason or off season, just being able to take advantage of those opportunities is really the hidden gem, right? Just paying enough attention so that you're able to, especially when it comes to your league mates, know how your league mates are going to respond. I remember playing with one particular manager who absolutely loved running backs. And if we came off of a year where running backs performed well, he would overvalue running backs for the upcoming season. And so there's an opportunity to take advantage of that. If I don't think that, those running backs are going to maintain that high ceiling, that high level of productivity, well, all right, now I've got an off ramp with a particular manager who I know is going to still apply value. So understand those trends and understand how that can impact your particular league, or going into a draft, how you think that draft is going to play out. That's your hidden gem.
That's awesome. Do you think fantasy football creates more engagement for the NFL, or does it distract from the sport itself?
That's a tough question, because the NFL is completely in bed with online gambling. So, that's questionable as far as I'm concerned, simply because it opens the doorway up too much to just questioning just the integrity of the game. But we've already opened Pandora's box. So there's you're not putting that genie back in the bottle. You're just not. I think fantasy football, the NFL benefits from it, but the NFL doesn't acknowledge it the way they should. I think it is a huge driving force behind the popularity of the sport, along with the gambling aspect and the parlay aspect that we talked about earlier. But fantasy football plays a huge role in the sport's popularity, especially for games that aren't marquee matchups, right? People watch games that aren't marquee matchups simply because they're invested in those player outputs. But the NFL acts like, fantasy football is an ugly stepchild. I mean, really, they don't give it the credit for the impact that it has on the popularity. So, I mean, I don't know if that will change, but ultimately, gambling is not going away, and fantasy football is a part of that.
That's good. So this year we've seen a lot of eyes on a particular celebrity at a football game. Talking about celebrities, what is your opinion on celebrity-owned fantasy leagues and their influence into the games?
Celebrity-owned fantasy leagues and their impact on the game. I mean, the more popular people that play, the more exposure it gets, and I'm all for it. I'm all for celebrities at the games too. If they want to show Taylor Swift 30 times a game, I don't care. I mean, she's there, she's enjoying, she's supporting, the person she cares about. I have no issue. And the people that get upset about it really are you want to talk about yelling at clouds.
Jealous.
Yeah, it's silly. And so for me, it really comes down to just the positivity of the hobby. And so let's say, as long as it brings positive news and positive engagement, then I'm all, then it's fantastic. Then it's great. And, for me, side note here, one of the reasons I like being at FootBallGuys is because, Joe Bryant is a quality individual who, I see that on a regular basis, and how he leads the team and how he runs that site is impressive. So really, as long as the folks that are involved in the hobby, in the industry, do creditable things, do supportive things, make right decisions, I couldn't be more enthusiastic about those particular sites, those particular individuals, the products they produce, and their involvement in the hobby.
So we're talking about Leo with fantasy football. Who is Leo when he's not doing fantasy football?
Wrong all the time if you talk to my wife. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, that is a tough question. I mean, I'm somebody who's settling into his old age is what I am. I was very career driven earlier in my life. I was, a logistics ninja who, ran multiple warehouses and project management and all that stuff. And now I'm older, wiser, hopefully, and again, it circles back to what we talked about earlier. I want to focus on the things in my life that matter, and I'm trying to take a breath. And I took 2 years. I know a lot of people who follow me on either site know this. I know you know this, but I retired early.
Mm-hmm.
I took 2 years completely off where I didn't work because my mother had Alzheimer's. And I became her primary provider for, her advocate, medically, legally, financially, and that really helped me recalibrate. Helped me I mean, it was challenging. It was a full-time job, but it really helped me recalibrate on what mattered in life. And so I've come out of that, a year and a half ago, and it's been all right. Well, prioritize the things that matter, because I don't want to look back in 5 years and say, boy, I really missed the boat. I really didn't spend the time doing what I should have been doing. So now there's a conscious effort on my part to focus on that. I mean, I still enjoy, I enjoy playing tennis. I enjoy playing basketball. I enjoy focusing on my health because, I was a diabetic. I still am, but I have it completely under control. and through diet and exercise. And so but I like to be active. My wife and I enjoy adopting, again, challenged animals that are, not in the best situation, so that we can either foster or take care of them permanently. And, I enjoy watching my son grow into adulthood and, venture out and be a quality individual. And I enjoy watching my friends succeed. And I play video games even at my age, because I got involved when my son went away to college. I started playing video games for us to stay connected. And some of our best life conversations took place at 12, 1 in the morning, when he was away at college and I was home, and we jumped on the video game together, and the walls came down, and we were able to have really challenging, important life conversations. So, but I still do that. I still like a lot of music, and I'm pretty well rounded. And again, just getting comfortable with, the age that I'm at, and just kind of on a downward slope on the roller coaster, just kind of enjoying, where life has left me.
That's amazing. Leo, do you have any fantasy football superstitions?
I did. I don't anymore.
No.
So for a majority of my 38 years, I like to go for a run every morning, Sunday morning. I like to take like the 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 lineup decisions, depending on how many leagues I was in. Because there was one 10-year stretch where I was in about 35 dynasty leagues. So there were a lot of decisions that had to be made on a Sunday morning. But I like to go for a run. I like to plug them all into my brain and say, okay, these are the 8, 9 decisions I'm trying to make. And I would go for a run anywhere 3 to 5 miles on a Sunday morning, try to dress warm, just get out there and run, and help me clear my mind. And I'd come back and I'd know what I'd want to do. And that was my superstition. That's what made me comfortable. And then then the cold started getting to me a little more, and I started playing in fewer and fewer leagues. And now I decide those lineup decisions over some Sunday morning music and a big cup of coffee.
That's awesome. So let's say fantasy football didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you would dedicate your time to instead?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think that the one near and dear thing to my heart is pets, animals. I like them more than I like people. I think that if I had to change things around and fill that gap, it would probably be what I'd really love, and maybe I would have been able to work more towards it. I don't know. But I mean, I'd love to be in a position to buy a big piece of land and just be able to adopt really physically. I'd love to have enough money, win the lotto. I don't know, where we could, just have a farm and just take 3-legged animals or blind animals and just not worry about vet bills, and just be able to take care of those animals that would normally just be put down. I think that would have been my decision, like what I would have truly tried to invest my time in and make that happen, or at least to be more involved in the animal adoption community than I have been. I mean, we do fundraising events and we volunteer time, but I would have done more of that.
That's really awesome. I love that. Hopefully you will win the lottery.
Yeah.
Maybe I can.
Well, my wife and I are in a good spot. The only problem is, those vet bills can be astronomical when you're dealing with animals that, are already physically challenged to begin with. So I'd hate to take that on and then not be able to fulfill that investment, fulfill that commitment I've made. So, to not have to worry about, that end of things would make that journey much more, stress-free for not only, the people running the organization, my wife and I or whoever, but also the animals involved.
Yeah. Who or what motivates you to keep learning and growing?
Uh, I, I watch my son, and I watch, the journey that he's on, going from college to the Coast Guard to now establishing himself and trying to establish a career. And that inspires me. But my wife inspires me because I watch her. She is the most, I mean, she's the Energizer Bunny. I mean, it's amazing to me what she does. She's smart and funny, and we've been married. I don't even know now how many years, 23 years, I think. And, she amazes me every day. And so, watching her, she works two full-time jobs. She crushes it. And just watching her, uh, do that, and just be as successful as she is and as compassionate as she is. And she's inspiring. We talked about, again, it's the same theme throughout the whole show, right? You build your friends and your inner circle around character. And those people that have high character are the people that inspire you. So whether it's my son, my wife, or my close group of friends, those are the folks that make me say, that's impressive. I want to do that.
I really love how you talk about your wife, especially nowadays, like with men talking so low about women, especially on social media. And to talk so highly about someone that's next to you, that's, you're protecting her with your words, and you're, like you said, yeah, like you look up to her, which is really amazing to share, Leo. Thank you so much for talking highly about the women in your life. I really appreciate that. What do you think about the men on social media that disrespect women, especially nowadays that we see a lot of them going around?
Yeah. So some of the most talented people in this community uh, are female.
I agree.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Some of this, and the fact that they have to endure so much negativity and so many closed doors. I mean, it's frustrating. Obviously more frustrating for them than it is for me or for others in the community that see that as just a ridiculous hindrance. I tell the story quite a bit that Liz Loza uh, gave me my first opportunity really to get behind a microphone. It was back in the early 2000s, and where I was with a fantasy site called Dynasty Football Factory, I think it was. It was before DLF. Well, DLF was there, but it was who I was with before I went to DLF. And um, but I had no experience behind a microphone or doing a podcast. And she was like, come on our show. She had a show with John Evans, and she was like, just, and then when she took maternity leave for her first child, I was the one who filled in for her on her show. And again, here's someone who's extremely knowledgeable, successful, but she has had to face, a lot of roadblocks and just a lot of um,
This is
vitriol, and yeah, just it's just awful. And again, the folks in our community, so many talented females that produce content, that are engaging, that offer advice. So I love to see the groups, the communities, within the communities where you guys get together. And it's frustrating. I don't know if there's any way to change it other than calling it out for um, what it is, right? And not
yeah.
shying away from it. Um, and just making sure that it's not accepted, right? That those of us that are established in the community, that have that tribal knowledge, that we step forward and we just call it out for what it is. And we make sure that, we aren't silent on it, I guess. But it's awful, and it's disappointing. And but I don't think it's going to go anywhere, go away,
I know.
unfortunately.
unfortunately. See something, say something. I agree. See something, say something to protect them. What advice would you give someone hoping to break into fantasy football analysis or a
Oh,
career?
well,
Yeah.
it's so much different than it was, 20 years
Agree?
ago.
Yeah.
Everyone, I mean, you have a vehicle now, right? Because you don't have to get in with a site. You can do it on your own.
Yeah.
I guess the two things I would say, pick an aspect of fantasy football that you'd really truly enjoy, because the grind can be tough, right? If that's really truly what you want to do and you want to make it a full-time opportunity, the grind can wear you out. Um, and network, right? And pick something you love and then network. Understand that every conversation you have, every interaction you have is a bridge. Don't burn it. And too often you see folks so invested in getting their point of view out and thumping their chest and saying, look, I was right, or I called that, or getting their point of view out so emphatically that what they're ultimately doing is damaging their long game, their long-term brand, because they're not building that legacy of being supportive and engaged with their audience, as opposed to shouting from the rooftops. Um, some folks try to find a gimmick and ride that gimmick until it gets them notoriety. My advice is, again, just pick some aspect of fantasy football that you love, and just be your best.
Agree, 100%. Let's play a little game. So I'm gonna
Uh-oh.
ask you a couple questions, and you're gonna answer me whatever you have in your mind.
Okay.
So most underrated NFL player right now.
Oh, Jesus. Most underrated.
Yes.
Trey McBride.
Best draft pick you ever made.
Edgerrin James, his rookie season.
Craziest fantasy league story.
Craziest fantasy league story. We had a guy fall asleep at a live draft, and he fell asleep, and um, somebody blurted out a name. So one of the things I hate is when you're at a live draft is when somebody says, "Wow, I can't believe so and so is still on the board," and calls out that a player is falling, and that's exactly what happened. This guy had fallen asleep and was nodding off in his magazine, and somebody at the table next to him, I forget who the player was, but he was like, "I can't believe so and so is still available." And this guy picked his head up and like snorted, and he was like, "I'll take him." And and
Oh my.
and we were all waiting to see if that player would fall a little bit further, and because he woke up and heard that name, that's who he took. And we laughed about that for probably the next 5 drafts. It became a joke. We all teased him for sleeping.
That's awesome. Favorite NFL team.
I mean, Patriots are local, so I can't help but pull for them because that's who my son likes. I like the
Yes.
Vikings. I really don't. But being a fantasy football player, I don't really have a favorite. Like, I'm not a diehard for a particular team, but I get attached to certain player groups and certain coaching staffs, and that's what I kind of gravitate to. So it changes. My favorite teams change over the course of 3 to 5 years. Who I enjoy watching, who I enjoy rooting for. Right now, I'm just a big fan of the Bears, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers. That division is just so much fun to watch, and so many young players in there, just crushing it.
That's awesome. What's a hidden talent most people don't know about you?
I got a really good jump shot, even at almost 60.
That's good. How about go to comfort food during a game day?
Oh, pizza. Always pizza. I love
Yeah.
pizza. Yeah.
Are you a morning or a night person?
Oh, I used to be a night person, but as I've aged, I've become a morning person. I'm usually, well, what time is it now? Almost 9:30. I'm usually sound asleep by now. So,
Really?
yeah, yeah, I've definitely become a morning person. Yeah.
No, I'm a night owl.
Oh, well, you and Doug. I mean, my goodness, he doesn't start rolling until 10 o'clock at night.
I know. He would not, he stays all day, all night till 6 o'clock in the morning. I think sometimes seven or something like that. It's insane. He does a lot of work at that time. I mean, I'm a night owl too, so I love that. But I have to wake up in the morning too, so it's not it's not winning for me.
Yeah.
So, Leo, are you going to the expo this year, or you're not gonna
Yeah,
try it?
I'm gonna take a year off. So
You're not-
it was fun. I'm really glad that I went. I
Yes.
really enjoyed meeting everybody. But for me, it's not something that I need to do every year. I'm not. My place in the industry is kind of established, and I'm not looking to grow that brand at any point in time. So I want to go back and see people again in another year, but in not this coming August, but the following August, I'll do it again. But this year, I'm gonna take off. Every year is a little too much.
Am I gonna see you at Scott a
Up
ball,
in Boston,
Scottish ball?
yeah,
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 in Boston.
I'll do the fishbowl every year. That's important, and I definitely, yeah. So we can get together whenever you want. You just have Doug text
Yes,
me, and we'll figure out where and when.
definitely. And someone was saying they love your T-shirt. Is it the
Oh,
Scott? It's Scottish ball, right?
yep. If it's on the fantasy, or it was, I think it's still there. It's because I had gotten it a while back, but it's on the Fantasy Cares merchandise site.
Yeah, I had Scottfish. I had Bob. I had who else? Sal. Next week, last week as well.
Yep, I
So
saw
it
that.
was
Yep.
really
Have you
informative.
have you had Zach on yet? Zach Reed?
No, I don't believe so. So
Yeah.
I don't have many connections online with a lot of people. So I'm gonna try and like poke you guys to get me
Well,
more people. Maybe I'll get Joe and I'll get Zach and a lot of people
yeah.
around.
Just
Yeah,
DMs, just DM Zach. He'll absolutely do it, and he's definitely in that circle.
I
He's
do
a
believe if
wonderful
they
guy.
don't, if I follow them, they don't follow me. I cannot DM them. That's the issue. They have to
I'll
follow
tell
me.
him. I'll tell him to reach out to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Leo, before
Yes.
I finish this episode, it has been an hour and I don't want to even like stop. I want to ask a lot of more,
Go.
more questions.
Go ahead. We got a couple more minutes. Go ahead. Ask
Yeah.
away.
So I do have a question that I always ask my guests before we finish. If they can share something that is maybe a secret or something that happened with them when they were at a really young age, but they never spoke about on the Game Changers tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be a pass. I got nothing for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on. You must have something. You must have
that I've that
something.
I've never that I've never shared.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the
Like,
stuff that you talk about putting me on the spot.
yeah.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I've shared it though, but I think it's worth if you really want something that I look back on that impacted my, how I look at things, how I look at life. I shared it I think on both sites. I try to share it once a year, the story. So it's not unknown, but I think it matters. So when I was in high school, again, I was a basketball player, right? I was pretty good. And we had tryouts. They weren't really tryouts. We had to call them tryouts, but we kind of knew already who was going to be on the team.
Yeah.
And we had one particular individual come in. He was a junior. This was my senior year. He came in, he was a junior, and he was a loner. Didn't really have any friends. He came in a flannel shirt and blue jeans. And that's funny, Doug. I see what you posted. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, this guy came in, and this kid came in, and he had his blue jeans and had ratty old sneakers, and he wasn't very good, and really struggled, and we all snickered, right? We all kind of like under our breath giggled, laughed. Even the coaches, laughed, and we're like, what's he even doing here? Why is he even trying out? And I think about it a lot, because I wish in that moment I had been a stronger leader. I wish I had used my position on a team as a talented player that had the respect of his teammates to have pulled my team aside or pulled my coaches aside and had said, do you realize how uncomfortable he must be to be here in this moment, in that outfit, struggling? What prompted him to do that? He's obviously far more courageous in this moment than any of us are. And I wish I had called it out. I wish I had gone up to him. I wish I had said, great job. I wish I had said, I appreciate you being here. I wish I had shielded him from some of the, snickering and laughter that was going on. And I wish I had put people in their place, but I didn't. I took a step back. I let it happen. And so, again, I've mentioned that on multiple sites, and it's something that shaped my career as a leader in the industries that I chose to go into. As I grew older, the teams I've led, the people I've impacted, the conversations I've had, that's always there, because I remember that, and I'm not going to have a second incident like that again where I regret not sticking up for somebody that is putting themselves out there.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Leo. I really appreciate that story. It speaks so highly about you. Thank you.
Oh, it didn't speak highly of me at the moment, though.
I mean, we've all made mistakes when we were younger, but we learned from them. And to learn that from one moment and figure life, it's huge. And it really speaks highly about the person that you are today in your community and everyday life. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, Leo, before we conclude, can you please share how our audience can connect with you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on both X and Blue Sky. Again, I'm not there all that frequently, but I try to, manage both of them to some degree. So on X, it's Siga_FF, and on Blue Sky, it's Siga_FF without the underscore. And so either one, either site, I try to, at least drop by a couple times a week and check out what's going on. And certainly folks, if they want to get in touch with me, ask a question, certainly reach out, and I'll, do my best to get back to them with whatever info they need.
Thank you so much. Anything you want to add before we conclude our Game Changer episode?
Yeah, like I said, if you want to read some of my stuff, it's at FootBallGuys. I've got an article pinned at the top of both of my social media pages that I think is pretty interesting. And then Fantasy Cares, they do a tremendous job and make sure that if you're looking to be part of the community, the good that it does, the positive steps. I can't say enough good things about, the team at Fantasy Cares, Russ and Bob and Scott and Ryan and Zach. They do a, tremendous job. And so if you have the time or the energy or the money to buy merch or be involved, please, by all means, definitely support that. It's a great, great group. And again, I guess that's pretty much wraps it up.
That's awesome. So, guys, if you didn't buy your tickets yet for the expo, the TSA family They have packages. They have discount promo. If you can read it all the way, it's scrolling down. So there is TSA FAM 10 for $10 off tickets. The TSA FAM 25, $25 off ultimate package tickets. So if you didn't buy them yet, try to use the code so you can support TSA family. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Game Changers. I hope my discussions with Leo provided valuable insight into his experiences in fantasy football and life itself. Join me for the next episode on Wednesday, March 26th, featuring JJ Wenner as my special guest. So after Leo, we have JJ next week. I would like to acknowledge JC for his contribution behind the scene and the entire TSA team. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is important for our improvement. Follow us on social media for updates on upcoming episodes and be part of the Sports Affiliation community where everyone is welcome. Until next time, keep challenging the game and making your mark. This is Carla and Leo signing off, wishing you a pleasant evening. Have a good night.